Hey team, welcome back. This video is about elf warriors, or Introverted Sensing, SI. What is an elf warrior? Elf warriors technically are introverted sensors. So they use introverted sensing as their dominant function. It's a cognitive function that pays attention to sensory information based on subjective experiences. So, you're looking for sensory-based information, okay, things that your senses tell you, and it's brought in, okay, inside you, and you think about it, and then you understand it based on what's out there. So you make this archetype or this impression that you use to judge how the things in the outer world are. We'll get into it a little bit more. But do you often ask, how does this compare to my past? Do you prefer similar, familiar experiences? Introverted sensing. Some stereotypes are, they are traditional, they're unimaginative, and they follow the rules. It's a little different than dwarf warriors. Dwarf warriors kind of push back the rules because it impedes on what they want to do now in the moment. But introverted sensors, stereotypically, would see a rule as something that's there for a reason. It serves a good purpose or did in the past, so it's probably still good now. Stereotypically. Technically, they look at concrete details, and it's turned inward. So like I was saying before, they have these impressions and these archetypes that they've made based on their past experiences. And then they look at an object and compare it to the past to see how it is, if they can trust it or not. So they compare things to the past. And just like all elves do, but it's specifically based on sensory details. And they seek familiarity and stability because that's what they trust. If they've been through it, if other people have been through it and documented it, then they trust that it's real and they can understand it and they know if it's good or bad or whatever. And they are focused and realistic. Okay, elf warriors, elves. Improved sight and hearing, long lifespan, and they use reverie. Improved sight and hearing means that they see something from afar, they give it some time, they look at it, kind of try to understand it, and then when it comes time, they get closer to it and actually interact with it. They have a long lifespan. Elves live for ever, and at about 1,000 years or so, they decide if they want to move on to the next world or continue. And so this means they have a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom, I guess. And they have very focused interests. Not breadth, but depth. Okay? Always. Elves try to go deeper and deeper to understand more about the things that they're interested in. And they use reverie. Reverie is like sleep, but it's a little different in the fact that they relive their past experiences. So you relive your past experiences enough over 1,000+ years, and you start to have these patterns kind of, how things are going to be, right? And you can compare that to the actual world around you, and you know if it's trustable or not. And warriors, they use physical damage. So the casters are the decision-making functions, and warriors are physical damage scouts. So they take in information and they pass it along to the judging functions. So in this RPG sense, just call them physical damage dealers. And they do melee. So melee is based on the sensory details, the concrete details that you can actually understand. But as an elf, they're focused on specific ones. that they can relate to the past. And they use strength. That's how they use their senses and actually physically deal with things in the environment. Oh. Pre-made character. I made a pre-made character as always to help you understand a little bit more about what elf warriors do, and I get to practice my pronunciation. His name is Silamemri Larethdal. That's pretty good. He's an elf warrior, melee, physical, and his stat allocation is strength. Everything we just talked about. On a whim, Silamemri suggested that his brother, Kelar, join him in search of adventure and glory in the war. They entered as last-minute recruits, despite not being properly trained for combat. Several weeks in, their scouting group was overrun by orcs. Only Silamemri was able to escape as his brother distracted them and fought to his death. Silamemri returned home alone and sobbing. His mother died of grief after hearing of Kelar's death. His father, having lost his wife and eldest son, died shortly after. Silamemri chose to join the Sentinels to protect the kingdom and overcome his regret. After Kelar's death, Silamemri became stoic and disconnected from much of the present world. He cares not for fantasy or lawlessness. Hardened by war and tragedy, he became extremely focused on improving in shield usage and swordsmanship. In times of peace, he trained day in, day out. Through constant repetition, he built on his foundations. He methodically absorbed every piece of information possible connected to his fighting style. He also reframed the younger, wilder recruits and instructed them on proper form and technique. In the 5th great battle, he was hit with a sudden insight. It almost seemed as though he knew the underlying structure of the battle. His memories somehow became linked to a vast consciousness of those of the past. This gave him almost tangible visions of what would come. Events would play out in his mind in vivid detail. He now had an even larger database of instances to compare the present to. This database expanded his strategy through expectations and predictions of the future. After the war, he embarked on a journey to bring justice to the orcs and to maintain elven traditions. So let's look at some abilities. Battle training. You've trained hard and learned from the best. Take less damage. Focus on the tried and true methods to inform decisions. Shield slam. Stun and do damage. Every bit of experience and resources add up when tackling a task. Physical projectile reflection. Reflect ranged physical damage. Look to tangible sensory information instead of abstract ideas and theories. Stabilize. Remove and protect against conditions for a brief time. Make meticulous plans to prevent problems or recover from them. Vigilance. Shake off debuffs quicker. Notice inner bodily sensations like hunger, tension, pain, and stress more easily than others. Taunt. Taunt targets to attack you. Take on more duty and responsibility than most. You know you can handle it, and you want it done right. Keys to the Elf Warrior. Snapshots or impressions of the past. Deep database of sensory data. So both of those together, just real quick. Elves take in information and review it and then interact with the world. And warriors are focused on sensory details. So put those together and you have elf warriors kind of being able to relive specific events, kind of like a picture or a brief movie. Ask an introverted sensor and they'll be able to tell you about it. Attention to specific details likes stability and order, and focused and realistic. Okay, your quest. Have you ever met an elf warrior? Are you one? This is a quote from Christopher Walken. I can't do the voice. I believe in saving money. I believe in having a house. I believe in keeping things clean. Slow and steady is a very good thing for me. It works for me. So in the United States, it's 25.4% of the population that are introverted sensors, according to Myers-Briggs.org. Okay, this has been a brief look at elf warriors or introverted sensors. As always, thank you very much for watching. Good luck, have fun.